It's time for Recipe of the Day. Happy Friday. We made it. And, Thanksgiving is just around the corner. And I was thinking that this is probably the weekend when most of us are going to be thinking about our Thanksgiving dinners, starting to really plan what we're making, which recipes we're going to use. And so what I'm telling you about today is how to make gravy without drippings. Now, this is a recipe that uses all-purpose flour, but towards the end of the episode, I'm going to explain how to make it with cornstarch if you need to do a gluten-free option. First, why would you need to know how to make gravy without drippings? Or maybe even before that, what are drippings anyhow? So drippings are that liquidy wonderfulness that happens at the bottom of the roasting pan when you are roasting any kind of meat or turkey. And it's kind of the fat and the juices that brown and caramelize on the pan. And they give you so much rich and delicious meaty flavor for your gravy. And they are kind of thought of as like essential to the gravy. Now, what happens is if you are, say, deep frying a turkey, you're not going to have any of those drippings because you don't have the turkey in the pan. And the other thing that can happen is if you are brining your turkey, those drippings can end up really salty. Now, another reason why you might want to know how to make gravy without drippings is sometimes you just don't get good drippings. Either they don't taste too good because of that brining situation or for some other reason, or like if you're doing a pork loin or something, it's just too lean and you just don't get anything in the bottom of that pan. So knowing how to do this is great. You can make it ahead if you know you're not going to have drippings, or if you end up in that situation where you pull your roast out at the end and it's just not worked out well for you, you know how to do this and everything is going to be great. Okay, making gravy without drippings. What we're actually going to try to do is approximate that meaty, nice, round, browned flavor by sauteing some aromatic vegetables until they get really brown. And we're going to use butter because butter has that like rich and meaty flavor too that you get from the drippings that come off of the meat. You see what I mean? So you're going to be melting some unsalted butter. This is 4 tablespoons of butter in a big skillet. We want to give everything room so that it can really brown. Once it's melted, you're adding in some chopped onion, some garlic, and then you can add any or all of some mushrooms, celery, carrot, and bell pepper. Any veggies that you have really are going to be good here too because you're just trying to get a nice browning going. We're going to strain them out of the eventual gravy, so they're really just to build this flavor. Now, if you wanted to throw in any meat at this point too, you could. If you've got some bacon, or if there's some leftover ground beef, cooked or raw, anything like that you can toss in here and it's going to all brown up and get that nice crunchy brown flavoring going, that is going to help as well. Okay, so you've got all those vegetables in a large skillet with the butter and you are cooking them over medium heat until everything is nice and browning, but not burnt. Then you remove it from the heat. Now we're going to build the gravy right in that pan. So you're going to sprinkle that all with some all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup. And I do this ratio all the time. You've probably heard me talk about it. It is 1 tablespoon of fat, in this case the butter, to 1 tablespoon of flour to 1 cup of liquid. That's going to make a finished thin to medium gravy. The actual recipe as written in this one that I'm going to be linking to has a little bit less liquid, so it's going to be a thicker gravy. Okay, so you are sprinkling all those cooked veggies with 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and then you're going to stir it all around, and then you're going to return it to the heat and keep cooking until it's lightly browned. Then you stir in a little bit of wine if you want to use wine. It does help with the flavor here because we don't have the flavor from the drippings. Every new thing that we can do to add flavor is going to help. The recipe says or water instead of the wine, but I wouldn't do that. I would actually use stock. I'm not sure why it says that. So wine or use stock, 1/4 cup, and you always want to just drizzle a little bit in to start because you don't want the gravy to clump up. So just going in with 1/4 cup of liquid, whether it's the wine or the stock, or if you're doing water, and you just keep everything moving and stirring, and you're really kind of scraping the bottom of the pan with this because you want that liquid that you've added to bring up any of the brownings that have stuck to the pan. You want those. Then you're going to whisk in some poultry seasoning. I like that for turkey, but also for pork, not so much for beef. If this was going to be for a beef gravy, I would probably do more of like a bit of of rosemary in there, something like that, maybe a little garlic powder. Stir those seasonings all around, and then you're going to stir in 2 cups of stock or broth. I like to use low sodium because as you simmer gravy, the liquid evaporates away and concentrates the salt. So adding less salt throughout the gravy making process is really good. And then at the very end, right before you serve it, you taste it and then decide if it needs more salt. So at every stage along here, you'll see I haven't been adding salt, and now I'm using unsalted chicken stock. That's going to help as well. Okay, so you're stirring in that stock or broth a little bit at a time, keeping it smooth as you go. Once it's all been added, then bring it up to medium heat and bring it to a simmer, stirring it often. You want it to come up to that bubbling boil, and then it's pretty much done. That is when you're going to strain it through a fine mesh sieve into a bowl because you want to catch the gravy underneath. You're trapping all those chunks of veggies, like I said. And then that is when you would give it a final taste and then add a little bit more seasoning if you want. So stir it all up now that everything is strained out, and then give it a taste, see if it needs more salt, pepper, anything like that. And then you would be serving that. If you were going to keep it warm for a little while, I wouldn't recommend adding that extra seasoning until the end, like I said. Now, as promised, I'm going to tell you how to do this with cornstarch in case you wanted a gluten-free gravy. The difference between the cornstarch and the flour gravy is that you don't add cornstarch directly to the fat, or in our case, what we were doing, that fat and vegetable mixture. Cornstarch, you always need to add to a little bit of liquid and then mix that in. So you can actually go to my actual cornstarch gravy recipe if you want to do this. It's cookthestory.com/cornstarch-gravy, or just go to cookthestory.com and search for cornstarch gravy. You will find it there. And there is a recipe that does not involve all of that sauteing of ingredients, all of that. It's just a very basic chicken broth kind of recipe, which you can absolutely do. Or if you want to do what we just did with all of that browning and everything going on, you can do that. So what you would do is the same steps, the butter, and then all those veggies, maybe some optional meat, browning that until it's nice and brown. And then you would add your stock to that, the 2 cups of stock or broth, add that right in there and give that a really good stir. And then in a small bowl, you mix together 2 tablespoons of cornstarch with a 1/4 cup of white wine, or you could use milk, or you could use water, and you mix that until it's smooth. And then you add that to your veggie and stock mixture, stir it, heat it over medium heat, stirring often until it comes up to a simmer. It's going to thicken, and then you strain it, and then you taste it and add the seasonings. So really the only difference is when you add the thickening agent. When it was the flour, you added it to the fat and the veggies and stirred it in, and then added your wine, and then added your broth. With the cornstarch, you're going the veggies, and then you're going in with your broth, and then you're mixing the cornstarch with a little bit of liquid, and then stirring that in. So those are the only differences there. Okay, I will put the link to the gravy without drippings recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is November 15th of 2024, and I'm also going to let you know that if you are planning your Thanksgiving dinner or any holiday dinners, I have some really great guides for you that will help quite a bit. If you want them, they're done in like mini course style by email. They're totally free, just information to help you out. Head to cookthestory.com/courses and you'll see them at the top there. You can sign up for the course called How to Make the Perfect Thanksgiving for You. And there is another one there called the Easy Holiday Entertaining Guide. Both there to help you out. Head over to cookthestory.com/courses. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookville.com, the all new chicken cookbook. And from this podcast, Recipe of the Day, I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.